What's up, everybody? My name is Dan, and I'm a podcaster. I am one of the hosts of the Black Law and Legal Lies podcast, and I'm also one of the hosts of A Few Screws Loose, the podcast, in association with the Breaks Media Network. So, what I'm here today to do is not necessarily review microphones or even do in depth comparisons. So, I'm going to just demonstrate some of the microphones I have at my disposal. We're going to start with the Shure SM7B dynamic microphone. It's highly regarded in podcast and broadcast applications. Um, let's see. The retail price on it is $399. It's often recommended that you use that you get a cloud lifter or Fathead, some kind of inline gain booster. I don't think I necessarily need one in my home studio. I have a couple of outboard preamps that I think are more than capable of pushing this microphone without introducing a lot of noise. And for those of you who don't know what preamp noise is, it's this noise. You hear that in the background of your recording. That means you're pushing your preamps a little too hard. So my initial thoughts on this mic, I don't know. I'm not a reviewer. I like it, I guess, for what it is. I wouldn't recommend it, especially to new podcasters who one of the things that I noticed in just kind of running in podcasting circles or in forums on social media, a lot of people think that the gear just magically makes your podcast sound better. So the train of thought is, okay, I'm using a AT 2020 condenser mic. Think that's like $100 mic. So if I buy a $400 mic, my podcast will sound $300 better. It's not necessarily the case. I've seen a lot of people get mics like this or the RE20, even the RE320, the Heil PR40, and they're very unhappy with how their final mix sounds. And again, it's because they kind of are under the impression if I buy this pro gear or even prosumer level gear, it's just automatically going to sound that much better. Not the case. So would I recommend the Shure SM7B? Sure, I guess. Wouldn't be my first recommendation. Some of the reasons being it needs a ton of gain to get a usable level. Right now, I have about roughly 58 dB, 57, 58 dB of gain going to it, and I'm peaking at around negative 12-ish. So anyway, just to wrap it up with this mic. This is how close I talk to it. I talk to it, talking to my mic, y'all. This is how close I speak to the Shure SM7B. If I had to estimate, I'd say I'm about maybe an inch away from the end of the mic. So that makes a big difference with most well, any microphone really. So, and I'll show you one of the I'm gonna bump up the gain so I can speak further away from it. Okay. So now you can definitely hear some of my preamp noise. Bump it up a little more. So you should be hearing at this point, this is how far I am away from the mic. I'd say that's what, a good 6, 7 inches. I'm not good at judging distance, but you can definitely, I can hear preamp hissing in my headphones. So it's preferable to be closer to the microphone, within about an inch. Okay, I readjusted my gain, and that was about 68 dB a gain that I just had going to the mic. But typically for these broadcast style dynamic microphones, they're kind of designed for you to be right on top of them within an inch or two of the microphone. So that's, something else I see, especially with even other dynamic mics. I see people too far away from the mic, and this room is actually fairly treated, so there's not a lot of room noise or reverberation. But once you get into some of the rooms that don't have any acoustic treatment, the further away you get from your mic, the more echo basically you introduce. So that's just something to think about. Again, Shure SM7B and $400 mic. Now, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna follow this up with a $20 Behringer mic. Like I said, this wouldn't be the first mic I would recommend to somebody looking to start podcasting. Of course, if you're experienced and you know about gear and audio and things of that nature, I'm sure this mic would probably suit you. This mic is what I always recommend, and everyone who I've talked to on social media who's asked me what type of gear should I get, they'll all tell you the Behringer XM8500 $20 dynamic mic. So I'm gonna follow this recording up with this mic. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, this microphone is the microphone that I often recommend to new podcasters who ask what type of gear they should be getting, what microphones they should be considering. It's a $20 Behringer Ultravoice XM8500. Like I said, $20. Now, this is on the heels of a $400 broadcast microphone, the Shure SM7B. For the price point, you really can't go wrong. I've used this mic numerous times. It really shines, in my opinion, at least, in untreated spaces, like when there's no acoustic treatment on the walls. I usually get up close on the mic, and it does a good job not picking up a lot of the reverberation. If you have a multi-host podcast, it does a good job, as far as I'm concerned, with rejecting crosstalk or mic bleed. So will listeners hear a $380 difference between the Shure SM7B and the Behringer XM8500? I'd venture to say no. Do you hear a $380 difference? So one of the things that I see, like I said, I see people wanting to buy some of the more higher end gear because they think it automatically sounds better because it's more expensive. Now the Shure SM7B, trust me, it is a much better mic than this, but this mic is perfectly adequate for podcasting. You tell me, do you hear a $380 difference? If you're just starting out in podcasting, you're not sure if this is something you're going to do long term, why invest so heavily in it when you can get close enough results with a much lower price tag? So, for instance, if you're looking at the Shure SM7B, that's $400. A lot of people like to use cloud lifters or fed heads with it, so that's going to add another 100 to $150. So now we're at 550. An audio interface that's going to be, depending on your need, let's just say conservatively $200. You're almost $1,000 into this, right? And that's just for one mic. God forbid you have a co-host or you need a second mic. So with this, it's $20. You can afford to lose it for the most part. I mean, I would assume that if you're investing in podcasting gear, you can afford to lose $20. I often recommend it being paired with the Behringer what's it, like a UMC 404 HD, that four inputs, four outputs, I think, audio interface. And that usually runs between $120, $150. You'd be out maybe $150 with this mic and the Behringer interface. A lot more sensible to me because you'll get adequate results. And if down the line you find you want a different microphone, so be it. You're only out $20, and you can use this for guests or people you're interviewing, or if you're going on the road. Take these with. These are like indestructible. So anyway, next up, RE320. This is the Electrovoice RE320. It retails for $299. Now, unlike the Shure SM7B, it doesn't have the shock mount built into it. Shock mount's going to run you about another $100 or so, but I highly recommend it because you can move your boom arm around, swing the mic, angle it in. None of it gets picked up because it's a suspended shock mount, basically. Let's see. Why do I use this one the most? It requires the least amount of EQ. All I do is typically roll off the lows. I put a high pass filter at about between 70 and 80 hertz, and that's really it. Sometimes for some voices, I might cut around 2 to 200 hertz, but with the Shure SM7B, I find that for me to be satisfied, it requires a little more EQing. The Behringer XM8500, it gets muddy in the lower frequencies. This mic sounds more like a condenser mic. It's kind of bright. It's more hyped in the higher frequencies. Still has a real good bass response. So again, this is my favorite to use. I use this one also in untreated rooms because if you get this close to it, my lip is damn near touching the mic. You can still get a really good sound out of it, but you can also turn your gain down and not pick up some of the room reflections. So a lot of times I set up in my dining room. I'll use my boom arms and the shock mounts, and that's it. There's no room treatment. There's 3 of us, and there's not a lot of reverb, if any, picked up. Same thing, I'll use it wherever I'm at that's untreated. This is the mic I go to. And even in my studio, a lot of the times I'll use this mic too, just because to me it's more impressive at rejecting background noise than the Shure SM7B is, and probably about the same as the Behringer, believe it or not. Do you hear a $280 difference or between this and the Behringer $20 mic? Do you hear a $100 difference between this and the Shure SM7B? That'll probably be more arguable, I think, to people just because of how bright and condenser like this is. Some people are used to hearing that sound from listening to the radio, whereas other people who listen strictly to podcasts, they kind of prefer the more flat sound of the SM7B. I've heard people call it muddy, and I've heard people call this harsh. So, I mean, what do you think? Once you start adding EQ and compression, things start changing. The Shure SM7B, in my opinion, handles EQ better than this mic here. This mic is not versatile at all. It's for talking. That's it. It has a kick drum function, but I've never mic'd any kits, so I can't really tell you if it's good or not on a kick drum. I wouldn't. I might have to try it. Honestly, I might have to try it. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, now this microphone, this is my absolute favorite microphone that I own. It's a workhorse. I use it for podcasting. I use it for music. I use it for damn near any and everything. And it's the Shure SM27 microphone. It's a condenser microphone. So it doesn't need quite as much gain as say your nowhere near the SM7B, the Shure SM7B, or the RE320, or even the Behringer mic, because this isn't a dynamic mic. But I do find that it needs a little more gain than most condensers. It needs little to no EQ as far as I'm concerned. I usually do a high pass filter on every mic at about 70, between 70 and 80. But the cool thing about this mic is the proximity effect is pretty damn dope, if you ask me. It's like you can get right up on this condenser microphone, and I just like the way it sounds when I'm close mic'd. But again, since it's a condenser, you don't have to be quite as close to it, and this is the sound you're going to get out of it. I've even used this with multiple hosts, like multiple people in the room, and it does a well enough job as far as noise rejection. No, it's not on the same level as a dynamic microphone, but it's pretty damn good for a condenser mic. Do you hear a difference? Well, I'm sure you're going to hear a difference with this, being that it's a condenser mic. It should be more detailed, but again, I'm just trying to make a case for the $20 mic that I recommend to everyone. Y'all let me know what y'all think. If you have any questions, hit me up on Twitter at I am Dan on Drugs. And if you're feeling adventurous, check out one of my podcasts, Black Law and Legal Lies, or A Few Screws Loose, the podcast. What are they about? Black Law and Legal Lies is a weekly legal show for the culture where we talk about social issues. And my co-host is an attorney, so we do a little bit of legal advice, but not too much because we don't want to get sued. A Few Screws Loose is about my experiences living with mental illness, and my co-host experience, my co-host P, his experience living with PTSD. So if you're feeling adventurous, check us out. If you're just here to listen to the microphones, I hope this has been adequate. Peace out.